Welcome into Rounding the Bases, the podcast about culture and leadership with a baseball twist, presented by Community America Credit Union. I'm Joel Goldberg, and as we start to wind our way towards the end of this season of RTB, season number 6, we're getting closer to the holiday season. This will be a little bit of a different episode, although it's really one that would apply year-round and certainly would be one that we could talk about again every single year, because it's pretty much guaranteed to happen with the holidays and the fact that we're always going to have troops overseas. There's so much more to this as well. But today on Rounding the Bases, we are going to do things a little bit differently. As many of you know, showing support to our brothers and sisters in arms is something that I'm passionate about. I think everybody is. We all have different involvements in that. I know personally on my end, I never served in the military, didn't have immediate family that served in the military. Way back when my dad was in the reserves, did not end up over in Vietnam. My uncle served, but for the most part, we were never a military family. But the beauty of my job in television is I've been exposed to so many elements of the military, whether it be being able to tour different bases with baseball players, going overseas, visiting troops, and things like that. So military has been very important to me. It's an important cause no matter the time of year, but as we move into the holidays, it's especially vital to show appreciation to those that are deployed. Operation Uplift is a local organization here in Kansas City with the singular mission of sending holiday care packages to the brave men and women who choose service over self. This year, Operation Uplift has partnered with Troopster and set its most ambitious goal yet to distribute 2,000 or more care packages to overseas military personnel. And I want to give a big thanks to my buddy Rob Hughes, who's incredibly involved. He is one of the TV personalities over at KMBC 9 News in Kansas City, and also incredible work. And joining me today, Mickey Carlson, Vice President and Director of HR from Yarco Property Management. But this is one of her big passions, and she's worked with Rob and many others. And she's going to share today this incredible cause, ways that we can help make the season a little brighter and a little warmer for those missing the comforts of their homes, families, and loved ones this year. As I said, this will be a story every single year, unless we have no troops serving overseas during the holiday season. And we know that that's not going to happen. So right now, I'm excited to bring in officially Michelle Yates Carlson, but anyone that knows her simply by the name Mickey. Mickey, how are you?
Doing great, Joel. Thanks for having me today.
Well, I'm excited about this because it's, I've seen it up close and personal, and it's moving in a lot of ways. And we'll talk more about the mission in a moment. I think we all can understand and relate that when you're somewhere away from home, anytime, especially during the holidays, it can be difficult, and you just want a piece of something to feel some normalcy. And so this is a big deal. But I want to ask you this first, because you're in a totally different world and HR. How did you get involved in this mission, which I know has become an incredible passion of yours, really year-round, to work on this?
Well, thanks for asking. How we got how the Operation Uplift journey started was back in 2017. When the now retired Major General Braden was preparing for the 35th Infantry Division's deployment. And what was really unique about this deployment at the time, and why he reached out, was it was the first time since 1944 that this unit was being activated. And this unit encompassed both Kansas and Missouri and had over 500 service members. And he was preparing for the message to go out to his unit about this 18-month deployment. Now, granted, you need to keep in mind this has been a traditional unit since 1944, that the National Guard, part of their duties was to do your 2 weeks of annual training and your 1 week in a month drill. And that's what their families were used to. That's what their employers were used to. And he was rallying as many resources that he could to help prepare them. So when the message was delivered about this deployment, the families and the service members would have resources. And that's where a natural fit with ESGR came into play. I volunteer with ESGR. I'm considered the Missouri State employee outreach director, and we are volunteers, and we are our Department of Defense program. And how we got involved with them was that we are a liaison between the service member and the employers to help with any federal USERA questions that may come up, because many times employers don't understand what the service member's rights are. And that's really important, and it can create a stressful environment for both if they don't understand them. So that's where ESGR comes into play. And we can also recognize employers and companies for their support. Like if they go above and beyond USERA, we have a public platform in which to provide like a Patriot Award and that. So I became pretty heavily involved with the leadership team with the 35th Infantry Division at that time for over a 2-year period, which started pre-mob, during their mobilization, and post-mobilization. So as I got to know them, I started considering them to be extended family. And as a civilian taking my ESGR hat off, I'm like, okay, there's got to be something I can do. And Joel, very similar path that you mentioned as well too. I didn't know anybody that actively served. My father served in the Army before I was born. And I would always see people walking around in uniform, and I always had the utmost respect, but I didn't know how to interact with them. Or, where it wasn't an awkward situation. So I'm like, okay, this is my opportunity to do something. So that Christmas, I sent out a Facebook post to family and friends saying, hey, I know of an active deployed group, and I'm going to send care packages. If you want to join, donate, whatever, or come over the day we're going to do it, you're welcome to. And we got an overwhelming support, and a really good friend, Jason Simonin, he's my Operation Uplift partner. He responded saying, hey, I want to get involved as well too. So he offered his Roof for All company, he's the CEO there, and said we can host it on this date. And so we picked the date, and we thought, maybe we'll get 20 packages. Who knows, who will show up. We were just, crossing our fingers if we even had one package. And so I asked Colonel Mickey and Major Bingham, who are on the state side with the 35th ID, to surprise Jason and come with me to the event. And so all of his staff was really excited to have them show up that day. And we presented him actually with the Patriot Award that day. Well, that afternoon, we had people dropping off things. And what we thought maybe 10 to 20 boxes turned into 69 boxes that first year, which was so heartwarming, because I'm like, wow, this is just amazing. And so the next year, summer came along, and I reached out to Jason. I'm like, you think we want to do this again? And he's like, well, he named it Operation Uplift, so he was kind of the brainchild behind it. And so we're like, we can't not do it again. This was just the connections we've made and actually being able to bring smiles to these folks that are deployed. And so we've been doing it every year since then. In 2017, we went from 69 boxes to 619 boxes. And then I think in 2019, when you came by, we had like 1,300. So in 3 years, we went from 69 boxes to 1,300. So it continues to grow. We weren't unfortunately able to do it last year because of the pandemic. So this year, we're hosting on November 13th, and our goal is the 2,000 boxes. We're hoping that we'll get there, but any help that we can get to bring smiles to those that are overseas, the better.
Yeah, it's remarkable, and we'll talk about how people can get involved, and we'll do this throughout, and it'll be posted. But there's a link to get to the website, and the simplest way to do it, and if you're watching, you'll see it on the screen. It's in our show notes if you're listening. bit.ly/Operation Uplift 2021 is certainly a way to learn more, and I'll talk to Mickey a bit and how anyone can easily get involved. It's so heartwarming. One, just to, you brought me out there in 2019 to see the amount of volunteers there. And then to look at some of these packages, I'm like, well, I'd like this and I'd like that. It's like, it's not a bunch of junk, and it's not just, it's anything from, soap or shampoo to, healthy snacks to not so healthy snacks to, a book or whatever, like all kinds of cool stuff that I think anybody would be happy to get. But I also know, having visited the troops overseas, that it does get lonely. It's what you would expect. It's everything you would expect and more. You're in the middle of nowhere in the desert. And thank God they have technology nowadays to be able to FaceTime home and to be able to be close, but that doesn't replace being home. And so it's so incredibly heartwarming on all ends. If I remember correctly, I think you and I connected over this, and I believe it happened because I had just come back from Kuwait not too uh, not too long after that on my USO tour with the Royals and Fox Sports Kansas City at the time, and one of the guys that I interviewed over there was Captain Aaron Schaefer,
Hmm.
and I think that was sort of the connection with all of us, was it
Yes,
not?
yes, that's exactly right.
And so that's how you pulled me into this. I didn't really know what I was getting. I just knew, or getting into, I just knew that you dropped the name of someone that I really, really enjoyed meeting over there and had a lot of respect for, and who I kept in touch with. I've lost touch a little bit. I know we can revisit that, but I'm curious when this. Well, let me backtrack on one thing. I mean, you talked about your role and the letters ESGR, which is Employer Support of the Guard and Reserves. I don't think that's something a lot of people have heard of, but I know it's right up your alley. Not just military, but I mean, look, you can't say human resources without human. Human resources
Yeah.
about taking care of people in their jobs. Sometimes I think many of us laymen, so to speak, think of HR as where you go when you're in trouble. And sure, that's a small piece of it, but without
Right.
the HR departments, where do employees go? So if I'm understanding this correctly, there's a military aspect of this where maybe they don't have as much of that connectivity, or they don't know what those resources are, and that's where you come in to help. Is that sort of the best way to describe that?
Yes, we try and engage with either reserve components or the guard components. They have like yellow ribbons, which is one of the ones that you went to when you came back when the 35th Combat Aviation Brigade group came back. So yes, our role is to stay actively involved with units so that the service members know that we're a resource for them. For like I said, any type of USARA questions, because a lot of times, as I'd mentioned, I'm more of a generalist in my role. I know enough that if something doesn't sound right, I'm comfortable saying, you know what, I need to check into that because I'm not really sure what the regs are. And USERA is one of those you just don't, in HR, you don't deal with it a lot. Or if you do, you're going to really know what they are. But most folks, especially smaller employers, may not know what that regulation is. And so that's where we can come in and help. We also have ombudsmen. So if some employers are really hassling the employee or the service member, that we can actually kind of step in and talk with the employer before it gets to any type of litigation or anything like that. So those are the things that we can do to help those service members and their families as well. And it means a lot too when the service member takes time to recognize an employer that has a best practice that they want to share. That really means a lot to a supervisor as well too. So we do share those stories on our ESGR platform as well, and try and share best practices for people to know. Because even as simple as when someone's deployed, we tell employers, check on the family. If you have someone, go mow their grass, or take them dinner or something. Don't forget about the spouses and families left stateside as well too. It's really important to be engaged with the service member during the whole journey.
So this is your expertise, and maybe extending your expertise into the world of the guard and the reserves, tying all that together. But I mean, this is your profession, human resources. I don't know that you ever expected going down this road, but I know that it's become a passion of yours. But then there's another level of Operation Uplift. So this is not human resources. I mean, in some ways, I guess it is, but this is just taking care of people at a time of year where they might get a little bit lonely, or they would just love to get home and hug a spouse or a parent or a child or all of the above and see their friends, and they can't do that. And so this has to have really energized you, as I think it does anybody that volunteers, but you're at such a high level with this that I can't imagine you not doing this. And I'm sure last year was really tough too because of the pandemic. But how much is this at this stage of life for you? I mean, I think we're probably similar age,
Mhm.
that when you come across these new things that you didn't know about before, they really sort of put gas in your tank, especially on days where you're empty, where you say, well, I know that someone on the other side is going to benefit from this. How much has this changed your life to be involved with Operation Uplift?
It's forever changed my life. I can't imagine now not doing Operation Uplift. Jason and I talk about that each year because we're amateurs at this. I mean, Jason has his own job as the CEO of Referral. I've got my full time job. We both have our own families. We've got teenagers, young adults in our household now. So making time to do this will forever be something that I'm going to do. I can't imagine not doing it now because it's so rewarding to be able to give back in my small way for all the sacrifice that these folks are having to do, like leaving. I mean, being gone 18 months, that's a really long time when you think about it. You're missing birthday parties, you're missing anniversaries, and I know when you went over for your USO tour, and in fact, it was impactful enough that you have it like in the first 3 or 4 pages of your book, you talk about your USO tour. To have those connections, and well, I'll never be able to walk in their shoes. I'll never understand what it's like to be deployed. But what I can do is try and bring a smile to their face. And that's the whole purpose of Operation Uplift. It's really not about me or anybody else other than giving back. And if we can do that in any manner we can by bringing a smile to their face, that's what our whole mission is.
Perfectly said. I want to continue to encourage people to go to the website. And if you just go to bit.ly/Operation Uplift 2021, that will get you there quite simply. As they continue to grow, any donation will help to be able to fund all these packages. $25, $50, $100, whatever it is. You'll see everything about the 501c3 on the website. The actual event is November 13th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Abundant Life Church in Blue Springs. All the information is there. We'll talk a little bit more about the effects and kind of how this all works in a moment. But I want to get to my baseball themed questions pertaining to Operation Uplift as you continue to learn more about what you said is not your expertise, but it's becoming it as well. What's the biggest home run you think that you and Jason and everyone involved have hit with Operation Uplift?
Well, I spoke with Jason about that the other day because I don't want to speak just for myself because he's so actively involved in this as well too, and he's starting to be pretty well known around the city. He's kind of our marketing in front of the camera. I usually like to be behind the camera. We both agreed that our biggest home run has been from 2017 when we did the 69 packages to 2 years later doing 1,300 packages. It's more than we ever thought we would ever be able to do. And the connections that we continue to do each year and gather is amazing. Another home run as well too is this year we partnered with Troopster, which is a nonprofit located in Norfolk, Virginia, and it's owned by Navy veteran Chelsea Mandello. And they specialize just in sending deployed packages because being amateurs that we are, we didn't have a 501c3 for Operation Uplift per se. So we partnered with Troopster so that we could, that way if employers wanted to make larger donations, they could make the donation to an actual 501c3. So the partnership with them, they've been awesome to work for. They've got everything down to the science on how to ship the packages, all their marketing and all that. So we've just been very fortunate to cross paths with everyone that we have that's been very supportive.
Yeah, and you can go to Troopster's website as well, but because they're involved in, I think, so many different groups, that's why we have that bit.ly/Operation Uplift 2021. It'll get you not just to Troopster's website, but to Operation Uplift's page on Troopster, which will have all of the information. Okay, so it's nice that you have the experts, so to speak, that can now handle a lot of those logistics, which I'm sure early on were bogging you down because, hey, you're just thinking about sending 25, 50, what ended up being 69 packages. Okay, we could all figure out how to do that. Now when you start talking about thousands, that gets overwhelming in terms of logistics and details and not something that you probably ever thought of. So it's nice to have that support. I'm sure there have been mistakes along the way that you've learned from. What's a big swing and a miss, and what did you learn from it?
Well, I was thinking that we were talking about that the other day as well too. The swings I would quantify as being just like 2 weeks ago. I spent some time at night going through, okay, who are some of the biggest coffee vendors that I could try and get on their website and introduce myself and see whether or not they have any samples or anything like that that they could give us to send in these packages. So the swings are being vulnerable and putting ourselves out there, because I don't like to ask for help. I'm always one that if you tell me if you need help, I'll be like, where do you need me at and when? But to ask for help is really kind of a tough thing. And the rejection, is like, well, why don't people support this as much or as passionate about Operation Uplift as I am? So just stepping back, realigning ourselves, and just thinking, there's so many great people here in Kansas City, and it's okay if they're not passionate about Operation Uplift. There's other things that people are very much involved in. So the swings would be just continuing to put ourselves out there, doing the ask, because again, that's not in my natural psyche to do that. So we'll just keep trying, and every day we just got to wake up. It never hurts to ask.
No, and these aren't. I don't think this is a difficult ask. I'm the same way. I mean, I've done some fundraising for some organizations. Appreciate that they relied on me for that. I'm not comfortable in that role. And that's what I tell a lot of them now is I'm better served maybe promoting or telling people about an event versus asking. But we're talking about an ask here of, not a lot of money or this is easy, and it all comes together in such a beautiful way. We'll talk more about that in a moment. But the final baseball theme question, small ball, what in terms of Operation Uplift is small ball? What are the little things that add up to the big results?
The small things that add up to the results are what I call moments of impact, and those are meeting and those connections that we're making through networking. People that we met 5 years ago still are coming back each year saying, hey, how can we help you? We continue to meet new people and partner with new people each year, which it's all those little things that kind of add up that make the event the day that it comes on November 13th. All of those little connections are going to come together and make the whole community come together to make the event a success. So it's just like to me, if you're going to start a workout program, it may be a couple months before you start noticing the weight come off on the scale, and you can't be discouraged about the little steps that you take. It's the life change and all that really comes into play. So again, it's just more of those little steps that we take along the way and connections that we make.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I always think, diet, weight, all things that I go up and down with are true. It's like, but I want to be here today. Well, you can't just be there today. So you got to do these little things. Right. And, a lot of people are like this. I'm an all or none type of guy. And every day that I figure out how to live in the middle of that is a victory. And so I think that's the same thing with this too. Like, you don't have to get it all done today. You don't have, but every little bit ends up mattering. So it doesn't have to be, no, I'm not interested, or yes, I could do everything. It could be, hey, I could do a little bit. Any bit of involvement helps. This is such a cool thing. And so I want to get to my final 4 questions as we round the bases. The first is going to be this. Maybe describe a little bit of what goes into these care packages. I touched on it a little bit, but this isn't just as simple as like sending a bunch of, holiday cookies.
Sure. Well, the first few years, a lot of it was donations. And then at the last minute, we were running, or primarily Jason would be running to Costco, just grabbing all kinds of stuff, depending on how much fundraising we were able to get. But we've gotten everything from socks to we've had a family here locally donate some old comic books and stuff. We've had USB Bibles, a lot of candy. We always ask people, if you have leftover Halloween candy, bring it out. We'll take anything. We're getting dude wipes this year. That's something Troopster is going to be able to donate as well too. So we take anything and everything that can fit in the packets, but we look at more their specific items that they really like to have. Like coffee is a really big hit over there. Chapstick, sunblock, the smaller, the sample sizes, any type of hygiene products are really good. I remember when the 35th cab was over there, even just anniversary cards for them to send back home. anything like that that you can think of, a small momentum from home would be great.
That's what they miss, the access to that. They've got great stuff over there, but it's limited. I mean,
Uh-huh.
it's
Yeah.
not like going to Walmart or Target or whatever store. They just don't have that ability. Second question, as we round the bases, I know you said you didn't have the military background, but because of your involvement and your role with ESGR, you have had the chance to be in the middle of it, so to speak. I like the way you said it before, Mickey. You can't quite walk in their shoes. It's the way I felt being over there in Kuwait on the USO tour for a few days. I can't possibly live their life, but I had a little bit of a taste of what it's like to be over there, to feel the heat, to see what it looks like. And so you've had a little bit of that opportunity, and it sounds like had the chance to ride in a few different type of uh, planes, helicopters, whatever. Tell me about that.
Yes, I've been very fortunate in my role with ESGR. One of the perks of ESGR as well, too. Again, we're trying to nurture and the relationship between the service member and their employer. So we have what we call are these boss lifts, where some of the bases will allow us to bring in a service member to bring in their employer for either a tour of the base. We've done Black Hawk helicopter rides. That was really cool. So it gives the employer a moment to experience what their service member does on their 2 weeks of annual training or on their drill weekends. And it's amazing because it's a totally different world. And Joel, I know you experienced this when you were overseas as well too. It's like they put on this other persona. I mean, the things that they see over there, the technology that they see is not
Mm.
things that we as civilians are ever going to totally understand. So every single time we've done these, we took a cargo plane from Kansas City down to Fort Hood before the 35th Infantry Division deployed. And the you don't get to do that very often. I mean, civilians just don't get those opportunities. And so those employers to be able to fly on a plane or go to the base and have an MRE meal or something, things that we just don't experience, those are invaluable. And every single time we do this, the employers just walk away with, wow, I had no idea this is what that my employee is doing, on the side as part of their duty to our country and that. So those are ways that we continue to just kind of broaden everybody's eyes on this is really what's going on. I mean, just even, I was fortunate to ride in one of the fuel planes and watch them fuel from in the air, which it's just like all these things just are just so amazing what they do. And like I said, it's a different world. And you just wonder what they think as well too, when they're at their drills and things like that, the things that they see and what they're exposed to. And they have to keep a lot of that pretty quiet as well too. I mean, you can't go around, just sharing all the things that you see. Some things are off limits that you can't share. And I think you experienced that on your USO tour, that there's certain areas or restrictions in that you can't go into in that. So yes, I've been very fortunate, and we want to just continue to engage with the employers so that these service members have one less stressor in their life during their deployment.
Couldn't agree with you more on all of that, and I've had a chance to be up in some of those as well. And it's look, when you get a chance to just get a feel for what that life is like, you become more empathetic, you become more interested.
Mm-hmm.
We all, I think we'll all be lucky if we can get a chance to get up in a Black Hawk.
Yeah.
Plus, and I did that my second year in television. I embedded with a National Guard unit from Wisconsin and went on their annual training down to a bunch of engineers down to Panama in the jungle, and we're flying over these mountaintops. And no doubt the
Yeah.
pilots definitely wanted to see who they could make sick as well, which I didn't get sick, but they were messing with us, which was pretty fun. Third question as we round the bases. I'm sure you've had feedback, and that has to be so moving and rewarding. I'm assuming, I don't know, but in general, what do you kind of hear from some of those troops when they get those packages, or do you get some feedback about what it means to them?
Yes, we've gotten some pictures we posted on Operation Uplift Facebook page. That's where we do a lot of our communication about videos we share and things like that. And if I remember correctly, Joel, I think you were at the event where Travis Neely shared a little bit of his personal experience. And it was a pretty emotional time during the event where we gave him the floor and said, share a little bit. He actually offered to talk about his deployment because at the time, he and his wife had two little twin girls. I think they were just between a year or 2 years old at the time. So he was gone for 18 months at such a critical point where his wife really needed him home to help with them. And so she was kind of holding down the fort at home. And he talked about how important these care packages were and how much he missed being at home. And it's just hearing him talk about that was just so impactful. Also, Captain Schaefer that introduced us. I mean, he was a big supporter of that, and I still keep in touch with him as well too. That we'll never really understand those little moments that to just bring that smile, and they can pass the packages along too. I mean, maybe there's folks over there, I'm sure, that don't have a family support system back here in the States. So, just doing whatever we can to again bring those smiles.
Yeah, and as I'm thinking about the timeline now, I actually believe, I know this because 2020 was off because of the pandemic. I think I had a conflict in 2019, which is when Travis would have spoken. I went in 2018, which would make sense because that would have been a couple months after I got back from Kuwait, and it was Travis's wife, Ashley, who was there at that event. And I thought, wait a minute, I interviewed your husband over in Kuwait. I love Travis. He dropped live on television that for their anniversary, he was going to take her to Fenway Park to watch a Royals game, which they did end up going to once he was back from being overseas. And I thought if I took my wife to a baseball game for our anniversary, I think that would be the last anniversary that I had. But he got away with it. So kudos to him. Travis is amazing. Great Royals fan, Ashley, and they had their twin girls live on our broadcast. Ashley and the girls, you can kind of hear the girls in the background at 1 or something. The twins up in our booth with our announcers and me and Travis over in Kuwait. It was really special. Final question, our walk-off now. This is the easiest question that I will ask you. How can people get involved? I know that I mentioned getting onto the website, bit.ly/Operation Uplift 2021. You can go to Operation Uplift's Facebook page as well. But what are the different ways that people can get involved leading into November 13th?
Well, a $25 donation will ship one box. So if you want to make a monetary donation, you're welcome to. We are taking small sample size, like I had mentioned earlier, chapsticks, sunblock, those type of things. And on our Facebook page and on the website, it does have Jason and I's contact information and cell phone number if you need to reach us. We do also have a Gmail called Operation Uplift USA at gmail.com that you can reach out to us as well. We're trying to get as much done ahead of time, November 13th. We do have a sign-up genius as well, too, because we do need help with the setup that Friday before, somebody to help with restocking tables, getting the packages taped up and ready for shipment and that as well, too. So those are the different avenues that we have available. So and spreading the word too. I'm not saying please donate $500 or anything, but even if everyone just donated a $25 donation, that's one more package that we can send.
Okay, nice and easy. So people can do that, and they can volunteer their time. They can send items, send money, whatever it is. It goes to the troops, and it's incredibly heartwarming. Again, bit.ly/Operation Uplift 2021. It's just an amazing cause and one that you can't go wrong with. One that'll put a smile on the face of a service member overseas at a time when you know that they're missing home, family, and this is a little bit of a piece of that. So, Mickey, I'm so glad that you continue to do this work. I know you'll continue to do it as well as Jason, and there's so many volunteers for a long time. Congratulations on just making an impact and finding such a meaningful passion. I appreciate it. I appreciate you bringing me in a small way on this a few years ago and just being able to get to know you and talk about it. So Keep up the great work with Operation Uplift. Again, reminding everyone just to check out the show notes, get involved in any way, the smallest of way will put a smile on someone's face during the holiday season. Thanks so much, Mickey.
Thank you, Joel, and thanks for all you do for Kansas City. We appreciate it.
Thanks.